Three, two, one. Hello, hello. What is going on, Moon Gang? What is going on, Space Apes? Today we have a very, very special guest, the leader of the Gorilla Gang, the proud owner of a Subway Cup. Give it up for Trey Trades. We are so happy to have. There it is. There it is. Oh
Every
man, how
day,
are you
man.
doing today, Trey?
I had a beautiful sandwich this afternoon about 2 o'clock. I got myself a foot long Italian herbs and cheese on a steak and cheese. It was good. It slapped. It definitely went down. I'm usually a pepperoni and meatball kind of guy, but changed it up. Yeah. I'm
Change it
chilling though,
up.
man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm super happy we can make this work. I mean, like, I know, like, I'm sure you have to be in the same boat of just like Monday to Friday, it's so much AMC, and then it's like more DD on the weekend. Like, it's just like a nonstop thing. And I
Yeah,
think things
man.
like this is kind of cool of this opportunity of like, I think there's just questions of like really kind of like who you are as a person. And I thought this would be a cool, like, just more of a relaxed, just afternoon interview, just so people can like learn about who you are as a person and really like what led you to like where we are at this moment in time. So if that, like, I think a good starting point is just like, can you take us through of like how you even got into investing, trading, options, all of this? Like, what was the start?
Man, well, I'll tell you what, it wasn't my duck shirt. Unfortunately, I didn't have a I didn't have a really cool duck shirt to get things going. No, I'm just playing. So my journey to investing was actually pretty goofy. It was I had no plans of getting into the market in the least bit. I was pretty good at algebra as a kid, so good with numbers, good with math. I liked trends and data. That never bothered me. But just never really thought about it. I was actually my goal was to qualify for Olympic trials in the marathon. So I used to run competitively about 100 to 120 miles a week. And about
Wow.
July of 2020, I had some heart issues pop up. So I was out on a run, just going for a jog. I think it was like a 10-mile recovery day or something like that, nice and slow. And I got like 2 miles in and just like face planted right on the ground.
Ooh.
And yeah, man, it was nuts. And I woke up and I was in the ER. And they told me that I had scar tissue from ladder infarctions, which I think are heart attacks. And over the process of like 7, 8 months, they ran some tests and stuff. They found out what it was. And during that period of time, they told me to stop running. So essentially, that's what led me to the market. So that, along with some financial hardships, which I won't get into, that's not that interesting. I decided just to get into investing to try and do something, because I'm a guy that has to do stuff. I can't just piss around on my Xbox or PlayStation and play Call of Duty all the time. I love playing Call of Duty, but you got to do stuff, just to feel fulfilled on a day-to-day basis. So
Mhm.
I started dabbling with investing and swing trading. That's kind of what interested me. It doesn't take a huge time commitment. I would say like half hour to an hour every day just to research stuff and figure out the nice setups and get into it. And I watched this guy named Rainer Teo on YouTube. You heard of him?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So Rainer Teo, I sat down for like a month straight and just watched his videos for like 2 hours a day, just study that stuff and figured everything out. And then by November, I just started getting my feet wet, started making some investments and swing trading. And of course, we got into the market in a really good time, so
Yeah.
the going was pretty good back then. And from November to December, I turned 3 grand into about eight. And then I started the channel and I turned that eight into about 45,000. And we got into AMC at that point. So I got into AMC as
That's
a
awesome.
swing trade. And dude, I don't know when you got into AMC, you're gonna have to tell me, but we got it at $4. And I was like, man, GameStop's already run up this much. AMC looks freaking juicy right now. The numbers on this are disgusting. Like, let's just rock this thing for a swing trade. And then, 3 days later, ran up to $25, and all that crazy shenanigans went on with Robinhood halting trading and people losing millions and millions of dollars in liquidity because of all these halts and people freaking out over the supply and demand. And I was just pissed off. I was like, man, this is whack. So I just
Mhm.
started covering every day, and that's where we are now. Yeah,
Man,
crazy.
before we get like, obviously, there's a lot of people watching this right now to talk about AMC specifically, but I'm really like that 3 to 8, 8 to 45. Like, obviously, those are not only impressive numbers for a seasoned trader, but especially for a newer trader. Do you remember like maybe one or two that was like a big game, like a stock that you were watching at that time?
Yeah, man. So the biggest trades that we made, probably on the channel, there was probably three that were really home runs. We got into JagX when that was about 35 to 40 cents, and we rode that sucker up to about 350. So that was a really gnarly run. We got into BNGO, and that was about $1 and sold out at 6 or 7. So that was good. And CTRM was another really big one. So we got into that at like 30 cents and sold that at $1.70. So all of those were like the huge home runs that really transformed my portfolio and others. But those are rare opportunities, man. It's not very often you get 500 to 800% run ups in a couple months.
Man, so what was it like at that time where not only was your portfolio like absolutely on fire, but like your social media had to be like exploding between your Twitter and your YouTube growth. Like, what was like a daily base? Like, what was that like for you?
So I started my channel in December of 2020, December 16th, and it took me 3 weeks to get my first 100 subs, and then it took me 1 week to get to 1,000. So the growth was insane after like just one video took off a little bit, and it got everything moving. And it was like every single trade that was successful, you start bringing another crowd. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like I remember we hit INUV, a Nuvo, and made some stupid money on that. Like timed it perfectly, doubled up in one day and got out and made some good profits. And I remember when I put out that video saying like we hit another home run. I went up and like doubled up from 1,000 to 2,000 in like a couple days, which is just mind blowing to me. And I was not ready for it. I'm gonna be honest. I was not ready for the growth. It was like I was talking about this in my Discord with all the people in there, the community. I'm like, man, this thing blew up so much faster than I was ready for. Like we finally kind of have it under wraps now, where it's nice and organized, and there's some good stuff in there. And but man, it was quick. I mean, you could probably relate to this too when your channel started blowing up. But like my Twitter DMs, Instagram, all that sort of stuff. Woo, it's like it's
Yeah.
tough to keep up with. I'm sure you know, man.
I'm even hearing a couple rumors about your OnlyFans, but we don't have to talk about that right now. We'll save that for the next
Yeah,
interview.
we got that going. We got that going. We actually swing that around. So now it's just Lamp. You guys can't see Lamp right now, but this is Lamp. Lamp is a beautiful specimen. We started up an OnlyFans for Lamp. If you wanna check that out, it'll be in the description box down below. No, I'm playing.
That's awesome. So, all right, obviously you're making some cool trades, you're bringing people in, like market's hot, and then really the end of January, early February, I would argue, and I know we're not that far removed from it, but Wall Street trading, like that was the start of like just a huge pivot. And this is kind of where AMC got going for you. So, like, what was like, do you remember the first day you paid attention to AMC?
Yeah, it was 3 days before that crazy run up. So remember I was in the Discord talking with a guy. His name is Ben Rico, and we were like looking at some different stocks that kind of caught my interest because at the time the stock market, you probably remember this, was just going absolutely wonk. It was just like crazy. Like all the stupid stocks, the meme stocks, all the stuff that like fundamentally speaking doesn't make sense to run up, were exploding. But all your blue chips, all your small caps that have been growing for months and months just started tanking. We were like, okay, so if we're not making money right now in our regular plays, our regular swing trades, we got to kind of adjust our game plan, at least for the short term. So we were like, AMC stock looks like this is going to be one of those potential next meme stocks that really starts moving. So we got into it with, kind of a smaller investment. I think I started off with maybe like $4,000 or $5,000 or something like that. Got into it and ran up just a stupid amount over 3 days. And you probably don't even know this. Maybe you do, but do you remember when like Fidelity and other brokerage accounts were like liquidating people's shares in the meme stocks?
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, I was just
Yeah.
getting like a lot of messages of people saying like I didn't sell, like what's going on. Yeah, I was seeing that
So,
quite a
so
bit.
that happened to me, man. It was crazy. Like I remember I was live streaming and it happened at the exact same time. Like I remember tweeting it and everybody was like, I got liquidated at 11:24 a.m. And it was
Hmm.
the day after I think the 27th. So they sold a bunch of people, at least Fidelity did, at the bottom dip of the regular market hours. So I think it was like 6.50 or $7 or something. I got closed out of my position and took like a stupid loss because I kept adding my position as it kept
Hmm.
going up, right? Like you start lighting that as the momentum's going. And at the end of the day, I think it took like a $20,000 loss in AMC after they liquidated my account. That was like the day when I was like, nah, man, this ain't it. This ain't it. Like I had to keep talking about it and just kind of bring to the light some of the really crazy stuff that happens. And people would say like, you got a margin call, you were over leveraged, blah, blah, blah. But like I was on a 1-to-1 margin account. So that was like my money, you know?
Yeah.
It's just absolutely mind blowing that it happened. It happened to other people too. Like I remember reading hundreds of tweets of people are like, dude, I just got closed out of my position. Like what's happening, you know?
Hmm.
So like it was just that moment to me of like this kind of malpractice that's taken place over decades and decades within Wall Street and the big institutions and all this sort of stuff and the brokerage firms. Like they all kind of work together to make money for the rich, you know? So like I'm sure it's the same reason that you're in this. Like you think there's money to be made here. You think that it's the cause we're talking about. And that's just why I stuck around instead of swing trading and taking my losses.
Gotcha. So, I'm curious. At that point, were you like obviously you were in AMC and you saw that? Were you at all involved in GameStop? Like, did you ride that, or were you just like watching it for the fireworks?
I was watching it, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was a little scared. I was like, no, come on, man. This thing's up from like I saw it go from 20 bucks to 40 and then 40 to like 150. And I was like, that's it. That's game over. There's no way. And the next day I went up to like 300. The day after that, I went up to like 500. But I was like, oh, come on. That's why I got an AMC because it seems like way less risky, like
Gotcha.
pretty decent short interest numbers. There was some momentum. The day before it hit $4, it was at 2. So I ran up a pretty good amount. I was like, this looks like it gets some traction. So that's why I never touched GameStop. That night, I kind of just like AMC theaters, man. I love movies. Movies,
I mean, I
yeah,
can't even imagine. The first time I consciously remember a short squeeze, I think it was actually a couple years into trading. You like right away, you're probably just like, "What is this thing?"
yeah, yeah, man,
Like just to
definitely.
see that, like, a good portion of the way in, and then like everything else. Like, I mean, obviously AMC followed. Like, what the fact that you got your toes wet and jumped in like right around like all these like black swan events that were back to back. I like can't even imagine. Like, it just seemed like just the craziest like wild west of like economics ever.
Oh yeah, man, it was crazy. When I came into the market, this was my game plan. It was to be the expert at a very, very small niche. Like so
Okay.
just to really be able to nail like a good technical setup. Like I had a set of rules that I'd always follow and just master swing trading. That was my thing. And then AMC comes and like all this mass explosion of stuff hits. And I'm like, there's so much to learn. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like it was just I think it was the best and the worst time to get into investing. It was the worst because a lot of people lost a lot of money, but it was
Mhm.
the best because the information you can learn from everything over the last 3 or 4 months is invaluable. I mean, I wouldn't say maybe invaluable. Like if you lost like $1 million, maybe that's not worth it, but
Yeah.
like you get my point. Like
Yeah.
it's an opportunity to learn a lot about the way that the economy works, the gears of the stock market, and I definitely am very grateful for that. And I'm sure other people are too that have been a part of this community. Yours and mine, man. The AMC apes.
Definitely agree.
Yeah.
So then, kind of take us through that time period in early February where AMC went up to 20 and then came back down, I believe, to like 5, maybe 6, like right in
Yeah.
there. And then that run back up to 1450, that like the kind of you we had from like 20 up
Right.
to 1450. What was going on? Like, what are the main things you pulled away from that experience?
So I think I was one of the very few YouTubers that was still bullish on AMC when it was $5. You were still talking about it? Were you bullish on it? Were you nervous? Or were you thinking? I'll get into what I think after that.
So, for me, when I was talking about it, AMC and GME, like I honestly had never been through one. So, like, I remember we were all citing the Volkswagen chart,
Right.
and I was like, okay, it came down. And to be honest, like, I was surprised about the length of time. But then
Yeah, like 2 straight weeks.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
so long. But the thing that kept me interested in, like, like, I'm not an expert on how Volkswagen played out, but what I thought was weird was so how the short interest like wasn't changing that much, and like, so like I
Mm,
don't know, like, I thought I was almost being, like, overly optimistic, but I was like, "Well, they didn't all cover, like, what's going on?" Like, they didn't cover
right.
and the stock's not going down, so I remember actively thinking, I'm like, "Alright," like, and I didn't wanna be too optimistic, but I always had it up on the watch list, and then, like, that kind of led us into, like, I don't know, early March, whenever that was, where it was like a hump, back, and then back up to 1450, um, but I think at that moment in time, like, if I'm remembering right, I think you were definitely more of like, no, like, you definitely saw something like, "Hey, like, we gotta pay attention to this one specifically."
Yeah, that was my thought process, man. I was too over optimistic. Maybe I was just like maybe on a loony train or something, but I just didn't feel like it was a dead cat, man. Like that was my catchphrase. That's where it came from. Like it dropped from $25 down to 5. And everyone was like, this is a dead cat. And I was like, nah, man, this is not a dead cat. This ain't it. I'm telling you. Because like you just said, the short interest numbers, they went down a little bit,
Yeah.
but they continuously kept climbing. And what I was really hyper focused on was this. It bounced back and forth between this channel for 2 straight weeks. It would hit $5, it would bounce up to 650, and then it would come back down to 5, then it would bounce to 650. And it was this consolidation period. And one of the very few lessons that I've learned from Chris Sane, we won't get into that, is that consolidation is getting ready for the next leg up. And I've found that to be true almost every single time in any trading scenario, right? So I saw it consolidate for 2 straight weeks, had this triple top setup at a $6.50 resistance line, and it's out the short interest numbers were continuously, slowly starting to go up. And I just thought to myself, like, there's way too many people paying attention to this right now. Like, it's still all over Reddit boards, it's still all over stock twits, and people wouldn't be, railing on other people that this is a dead cat, this is a stupid investment if they weren't paying attention to it. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? Like the more haters you have, I think the more, and this isn't just me, like the AMC community, right? The more people against you, the more you really know you're onto something, is what I've always thought. So the short interest numbers really caught my eye. I really truly believe that AMC was a straight up value play at $5. Like worst case scenario, what I was saying at the time is you buy this right now, and a year from now, you should be looking at a 3 or 4x on your money. So I just saw no lose scenario at a $5 price on AMC. So I just kept talking it. I mean, the numbers on Ortex look beautiful. The setup looked fantastic. I mean, it held that $5 resistance after it finally bottomed out for 2 weeks, and then we had that rip up to 14, like you were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I was that kind of the way I thought about it was early February, mid February, we came down and like from a technical perspective, there was like a gap to be filled. And when it didn't like, I guess really fall from there, and then I just saw the sub communities actually building, like whether it was on
Mm.
Reddit or things like that. And actually,
Yeah,
that's
right,
something
right.
we need to talk about. Um, that was a point where I'm like, this isn't like as rare as squeezes are. That was a moment on that backup when it broke above 650. That was like, this has gone from a stock to like an actual social cultural movement. Like for me,
It
that was a
is straight
moment
up.
where I'm like, the fact like usually with the squeeze, it squeezes, comes down, like we all had our fun. But this one where I saw all the communities growing, like I mean,
It wasn't
your
a pump
social
and dump.
media, my social media, fellow creators' social media, I was like, hang on, like it was crazy. And like honestly, when I look at AMC and GME now, it's like it's weird for me because I try to apply some of my knowledge of stocks, but then I remember it's like it's a social battle that's being fought on the stock market. And like I know that
Mm.
sounds weird, but it really is. Like I mean, as much as we look
Oh, you're
at
spot
like
on.
the short interest and all that stuff, it's so unpredictable because like it's a social cultural fight between many things. Like I like to always say the 99-1, us versus them, that type of thing. It's the classic
Yeah.
story of David and Goliath, and it just happens to be playing out in the stock market, which is like I know when we were looking at Volkswagen stuff, like that was a pattern, but I'm like, also, this is like new. Like what we're seeing right now is like a
A
very,
different
very
stock,
like,
right?
yeah, it's crazy. Um, so before I want to like talk about actually, we might as well do that now, but we need to come back to the 1450 to now. But what do you take? I mean, I'm sure you see it on Webull. Of at first, the Reddit community was very strong with Roaring Kitty and GME, and then it led into BB, Nook, AMC. Like there's a cost, like there's a whole list of them. What do you take now that I mean, I'm not in those community, like I'm not a mod or an admin or anything, but like you have to see the top 20 and like AMC's not on the list or at all. And then I'll talk to people about it and they're like, no, like we're not allowed to talk about AMC specifically on Wall Street Bets. Like, why do you think, like, I don't know, what's your takeaway on all that?
It's a very fascinating situation where you've got two different cultures with the same goal, but two completely different approaches. So I've always felt like this. I mean, you're an AMC and GameStop guy. I'm an AMC guy. There's some other people that cover both, some only cover one. But I've always said, and I feel like everybody in the AMC community said, AMC and GameStop, if one of those wins, we both win.
Mhm.
So it's this idea within the AMC community that like if AMC starts moving first, GameStop's going to be the little brother and follow up, and vice versa. If GameStop runs AMC, they'll do the same thing. For whatever reason or another, it feels like the GameStop community is like, if you're not in GameStop, you're wrong. Like if you're in AMC, you're going to lose your cash. Like there's no better investment than GameStop. AMC is just a distraction. And I don't know if I really understand that logic because if you look at just purely the numbers, no speculation whatsoever, right? The advantage to me, the only advantage with GameStop is that it's got a lower float, so there's less opportunity for paper hands, right? Like more people can ride the train up. But the short interest on AMC is like literally on par with GameStop right now. Like I think on the verge of surpassing it at the very least. Like just numbers alone, not including puts, not including ETFs, not including naked shorts. Like it's just like a freaking solid squeeze potential stock. Like I saw this list and it was like I think number 58 out of every single stock on the market for squeeze potential. And I think honestly that's even off. But for whatever reason or another, it just feels like the GameStop community doesn't want AMC to squeeze. Like I've seen it too, man. Like I go on those Reddit boards and I've seen like AMC stock posts go up and they just get taken down immediately. It doesn't make any sense at all because like, can you imagine if all of a sudden you could get, AMC on Wall Street Bets where there's millions of like Reddit users and you could talk about the numbers and the research and the DD that people have done and actually get, some people informed so they can make investment decisions, like I feel like nobody loses there. Like what is there to lose? I don't know if I understand it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if like I don't get it illogical, maybe hurtful is not the right word, but in the end, the embodiment of this fight for me is like we're trying to actively push like point out weird things that Wall Street's doing, immoral, illegal, like the list goes on, all those synonyms. And like it's weird to me that people are like borderline hell bent on like, yeah, we want to prove that message, but we want to prove it with stock X or stock
Yeah,
Y.
right.
It's just
Totally,
like
totally.
we're trying to prove and do the same thing. So like, I mean, like I think if one squeezes, the other will squeeze. That's my own belief. I mean, guys, neither of us are
It's hype
financial
momentum
advisor.
FOMO,
Like,
man.
yeah, it's just like
Yeah.
it's my opinion on it. But like, I don't know. I just don't like that argument because, like, I think we're all both communities are trying to prove the exact same point in my mind, and the fact that like they're saying, "Well, you're trying to prove that same point, but incorrectly somehow," I get lost as well with that.
Ape no hurt ape, man. Come on, it's this. Apes together strong. I'm telling you. That's
Yeah.
what this whole movement's about to me. And honestly, I feel like the people within either the AMC or the GameStop community, I think it happens on both sides, but I definitely think it happens more with GameStop, that are saying like, if you're not an X stock, you're wrong. Like you're getting you don't get the point of this, right? It's about the community. It's about the little guy taking a win over the big guy, because I truly believe we've got them like gripped, like they're freaking nards in our hands, man. And like it's just a matter of time until, obviously it's just an opinion, but like numbers are numbers. Men
Yeah.
lie, women lie, but numbers don't lie. Is what it
Yeah.
comes out to. And I just don't see a scenario where we can't, give it to the man as like everybody wants to do. Like in my Discord, you let me know what happens in your community. But like there's people that were actually involved in like the 2008 financial crisis that are like,
Mm.
this could literally be game changing. Like I had my life stolen from me. Like people lost their freaking houses. People filed for bankruptcy, like just on the verge of the goddamn streets. And this is like their opportunity to take what was theirs. That's
Yeah.
what it's about for me. It's like this opportunity to really do something that means something to the actual 99%, like the little guy.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good way to capture like the ethos of like this social movement, what's going on. And like, I think the reason it hasn't, I think in my mind, it was a perfect storm. A lot of us were directly involved in 2008, 2009. We had a parent, uncle like that. Like for me, I was a little too young. I wasn't in the market. But I remember that Thanksgiving, I was just talking with my parents. We're at family friends. It's at Thanksgiving. And they're just talking about like how much money everyone lost. And like, it was obviously like a very somber mood.
Mhm.
And then the fallout of it is just the fact that like I think maybe one low level banker in the entire thing was arrested, a couple slaps on the wrist. And so fast forward that now, like almost a decade later, more than a decade later, everyone's stuck in their home. We all now have the technology to trade ourselves. And like we're so interconnected that people, if there's enough people agreeing on one movement, it can very really it caught fire. That's what happened. Like
Yeah,
it was
100%.
a huge play of psychology. And it's crazy. And I like no matter what anyone tells me, and I know you agree with this, I don't think it's over.
I don't either,
I think
man.
we're still in the middle of it. It's a patience play, it's a discipline play, and like we're to me in the middle of the fight still.
I've got kind of two thoughts on it. I think this is decades and decades of malpractice that's
Mm,
taken place within the stock market for a very long time. That's culminated to this movement of pure anger. I think it's just people being angry because, like, when I think about a small cap stocks that just get obliterated into bankruptcy, and all the retail investors that lose money because of it, all that liquidity transferred to the 1%, right? Like people are pissed about that sort of stuff. And then furthermore, from there, it's like we mentioned earlier, like just people that this actually affects their lives. Like it's just frustrating, man. Like
yeah.
I remember. No, I'm not gonna get into it. Go ahead. Anyways, well,
Okay.
back to you. Back to you.
Yeah. Well, let's get to the chart, but I think the one thing that is also worthwhile to note is like, so you have all that very um, serious psychological baggage of what's going on, and to me, the cherry on top is the fact that like it's also wrapped in like a weird thing of humor. Like it's the in group, it's the lows,
Mm.
like the amount of memes, tweets,
Yeah,
everything
right.
of like Melvin losing. Like it's just like you have very serious like life
It's the
altering
apes.
things, and then you like wrap it in some humor and like that's just like a huge like that's why it took off like wildfire in terms of psychology because it had like every aspect of a good story that people want to be involved in. And that's why we are where we are now. But I guess speaking of the charts and everything, so let's fast forward to mid-March. We hit 1450. Very exciting. We're like, oh my God, is this a rip again? Unfortunately, stopped about halfway up. Since then, we came down. And in my opinion, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. It came down consolidating, and now it looks like we're starting to bend once again.
Man, you hit it spot on the nail. That's exactly what I thought. So I actually made a video and I called it the AMC chart trend that nobody is talking about. And it reminds me a lot of what happened during that 2-week consolidation period where we bounced 3 times between $5 and 650. So you have that triple top setup from 5 to 650. And if you look at the chart now, it's not the exact same, but it's like technical analysis is an art, not an exact science, right?
Mm.
You've got the same sort of triple top setup in the making. You've got this, it'll drop down to 950 or $9, and then it bounces up to 1050, 11, and it's done that twice now. And I see this third top starting to form. And I think it's either A, going to break this first time, or B, reject and then try again. And you're going to have the exact same setup as you had back in February. Of course, I'm not a financial advisor. This is just a guy who likes to look
Yeah.
at trends, but it feels very freaking eerily similar for sure.
Yeah. Trends and data, we're going to hop into that with the short interest numbers. And just so everyone knows, Trey asked me to do some lines on this chart before just so we could discuss a bit more. So just so you know, those trend lines you asked me about, they're on the screen now, Trey, if you want to talk to those about them.
Perfect. There's a little bit of a lag on YouTube Live, but I will look at this. So let me see.
Basically, just so like everyone listening, the trend line is the connection of the high on January 27th when we hit 2036 to the next relative high on March 18th when we hit about 1454, I believe.
Yeah, okay. So those were the daily candles. Yeah, there we
Yes.
go. Now I can see it. So essentially, it's just a stupid YouTube lag thing, man. It's you probably know exactly what I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about. Yeah, but anyways, so you've got the descending level of resistance, right? You've got those 3 touch points. That's exactly what I look for to find any respective level of support or resistance. And you have the beginning of the first candle that could potentially break this months long descending resistance line, or essentially break this pennant formation on this channel, right? And that is a huge momentum shift that could potentially happen. So with a hard break over that, I always consider a hard break if it's a daily candle chart, one daily candle that opens and closes above that
Mhm.
level of resistance or support. And if we have that one daily candle that opens and closes above that resistance line, I think you're looking at the potential for the beginning of the nasty move, at least in terms of technical setup. Now, I think the thing that we're missing right now, which is starting to actually trend in the right direction, you let me know what you think, but that's the volume, right? So I
Mhm.
think back in January 27th, you saw 1.2 billion in total volume. And at the time, I think there was about 150 million shares outstanding, which means that those had to have circulated 8 times over to have 1.2 billion of volume, which led to that insane run up that we had that day. Now you've got 450 million shares, right? So that means the second time around, if it's, a similar setup, you should be looking at, I'd say somewhere between 5 and 8 times that float potentially in terms of overall volume flow. If you take into consideration naked shorts covering, ETFs, I don't know if I genuinely think that there's probably more shares being traded than should exist, but that's a whole different conversation. But we just don't have the volume yet. So that volume, if it starts falling through, you get trending in the right direction. I think you're looking at the beginning of the next hard move. And if you look at the trend, like the trend in volume, right? Back before January 27th, you had, I think it was like a 7 to 10 day period where that volume slowly ramped up from like 50 million to 100 million to like 150. And you had a couple of 300 or 400 million days and that 1.2 billion day. And that's when things really started hammering away. So I think we're starting to trend in that right direction, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, I think with that, my own little input is the volume and the price action is kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg. Like it goes up high
Yeah,
because of the volume.
right.
So people are like, well, we need volume, then the price, or the price of the volume. It's like they kind of
But it's got to
almost
be
happen
green volume.
simultaneously. Like you need that
Yeah.
volume to get the abnormal one, especially with like let's call it quote unquote extra baggage, all those extra shares. Like we definitely need more considerable volume, and that'll play like in my opinion the same into the price action. So that's the technical setup of like really what's been going on pretty much this entire calendar year. And on my screen now, I'm just showing them all the Ortex. While this
Okay.
is loading, I will read that out. So basically, the estimated short interest right now on AMC is around 23.6%. And there are 450 million shares in existence for AMC. 400 million are the free float, the shares that you and I trade. And out of that, the current numbers are roughly around 154, 155 million. And just so the audience knows, Trey and I have talked about this. Ortex has about 85% coverage of prime brokers. So there is this, the main point in bringing this up, this is the absolute floor. There is a very, very solid, grounded, like technical argument, fundamental argument that the
That's
numbers would
higher.
actually be higher. But
Right.
right now, for the good of the community, we're presenting the information that we have right now. It's at least 154 million shares out of the 400. So anyway, as you can see on the screen now, let me make this a little bit better. Ever since Thursday, March 18th until now, it has been a nonstop runaway train in terms of the estimated short interest and the shares that are on loan. So if how do you interpret that data?
Man, it's disgusting. It's so nasty. There's nothing like I wake up at 3 in the morning every single day and I pull up Vortex and just kind of look at what the numbers are looking like. And every single day I just like start laughing when I start reading the short interest numbers because it's absolute insanity. Like I'm trying to think about this from a logical perspective. So as an investor, if I was to short a stock, right, it makes the most fundamental sense to try to short a stock in which you're not fighting the grain, right? It's going down. People are trying to sell it. It's a company that's legitimately facing bankruptcy. And with every passing week and every passing month, AMC's long thesis continues to grow stronger and stronger, which is like this idea of the longer they play this game, the more they're fighting the grain against an actual sound investment, you know? But despite that, they keep doubling down on their short positions. Like it's absolutely absurd. The utilization is maxed out. It's been maxed out, I think, for like 4 days straight now, something
Mhm.
like that. The shares on loan is at record highs. I mean, you have to take into consideration also that there are more shares outstanding. So obviously that plays into the equation. But I think the free float on loan percentage is absurdly high. I think that's, I don't remember exactly. I think it's at least close or a little bit higher than it was back in January. But the numbers are stupid and they just keep going up like 0.5% or 1% every single freaking day. So it's obviously being shorted.
Yeah, I mean, relative to what we saw back on January 27th, that's when AMC broke above $20. That was its like most recent relative high. At that moment in time, the short interest was around 15% and 83.6 million shares were on loan. And that was when we hit 20. And now you could pretty much double that up. The short
Yeah.
interest is 23.52%, 154 million shares on loan. And like that's also like you could double that up and that's like a proportionate rate, but like also keep in mind, folks, like this is going to be exponential. It's not linear that the same proportionate amount of shorts will cover because like it's going to get out of control. So you actually see like a higher proportion. And as Trey was alluding to, we're not counting shorts in ETFs that like have exposure to AMC, and this is in no way including naked shorts. So this is like one data point, and if you start to add in all those other data points, the argument of how violent this squeeze could get is it's even stronger.
I think the squeeze is going to be absolutely disgusting. And I think it's for more than one reason. So I think the numbers look better, but I think there's also other factors coming into play, like these new DTCC filings, right? So I think that the SEC and a lot of other regulation, corporations, the big entities, right? They're paying attention to this and they recognize that people were pissed off. Like there's obviously something stupidly wrong with the way that that whole situation was handled with Robinhood cutting off buying, other brokerages doing the same, some people getting liquidated with one-to-one margin accounts. There's just a lot of, I think, malpractice essentially. And they're waking up to it. And they're like, okay, this time around, I don't think we're gonna be able to get away with this. So I think if you hadn't, and you could probably, give me your input as well, but if you hadn't halted buying with brokerages like Robinhood, Webull did it for, I think, like a couple of hours. Some other brokerages did it. You probably would have seen this, AMC GameStop run up continue for as long as apes wanted to keep freaking buying and holding.
Yeah.
But when all you can do is let people sell, it's a whole different ball game. So I'd be really surprised to see if they do that again. Maybe they will. Who knows? But I really pray to God Robinhood doesn't do that. That would absolutely be the nail in the coffin for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
But I just think it's not going to get. I don't think it's going to get shut down. I think that they're way better off paying their billions or trillions of dollars in liquidity when this thing squeezes and not completely destroying the trust in the stock market, the U.S. stock market. Because if they do that, I'll tell you what, me myself, I'm going to tell my kids and my grandkids that the stock market is probably not the play. Like, go buy yourself a bond or go get into real estate because the stock market absolutely screwed millions of people. And I don't think they want to do that because that affects everybody.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's always that risk that your trading brokerage, like, it can stop you, like that can happen again. But I
Right.
do believe that it's a different type of game this time around because ideally from
Oh, it
round
totally is.
one, they now have more collateral. They should have more liquidity to cover it. So like, I don't think it's the exact same risk. And like that first one, I mean, I think you were really onto something there. Like it was going, it was running, and then it was basically like the game was stopped at halftime. We actually don't know how that one would have played out because like people just stopped. Like so many people, I know you experienced it, I know I experienced it. Everyone was still trying to buy and they just couldn't. So like right there,
Yeah.
you just like blew the momentum out of the water. Like it was just done. Like they killed the momentum and that was it. And one of the biggest things in a short squeeze is the psychological momentum, all that FOMO, like people like, I don't know, just like they don't want to miss out, so they're buying. Then the shorts are getting scared, and it just snowballs higher and higher and higher. And right there because of like the stock market system and the DTCC requiring extra collateral from Robinhood, Webull. Honestly, the list goes on. They all just
Right.
said no. So like, there's no like, I mean, woulda, coulda, shoulda, but we just don't know how that actually would have played out if they allowed us, if they allowed the stock market to work the way we were all told it should work. But apparently, and that's why they're trying to make these new rules, I suppose.
That's my take too, man. I think it's just trying to save some face for basically the US stock market and all the entities that make everything happen, because if they don't at least address it, you're going to lose some trust from people, and people put liquidity in the market. And, obviously the majority of liquidity in the stock market comes from institutions, the really, really rich people, the insiders, yada, yada, yada. But that doesn't make up the whole pie. Essentially, if it was just all the one percenters that were putting money in the market, they'd just be trading liquidity with each other, right? So it's in their best interest for us to put money in so they can hypothetically keep making more money. And I don't think they want to do that. I don't think they want to do that. I think they'd much rather pay us our tendies and let the stock market continue to run in the way that they put, like it. I don't think they're going to get to, but obviously that's just my opinion. Either way, I think it's a much different ballgame, like you're saying, man. I think it's there's going to be more regulations. There's going to be more collateral and liquidity within brokerage firms. So you shouldn't have this halting of buying because they can't afford, to make the securities, work out. I am really, really bullish on AMC as you are. I think there's way too many things going on. I think there's way too many apes out there doing DD and research. Like this is, let's have a conversation about this in a sec. The bear argument, right? Is the stock only goes down and the shorts have covered. That's like been the two big things that I've seen across the board. And then the bull argument, you've got hundreds of thousands or millions of people who have done extensive research in DD on hundreds of different assets and facets that come into the equation, right? I just cannot believe that the bear argument is stronger than the bull one. Do you want to tell me that hundreds of thousands of millions of people are wrong? Like, maybe it's
Yeah.
just confirmation bias, but like I've read some really intelligent stuff, man. Like people way smarter than me throwing together some god tier like research, and I just can't buy it. I can't buy this is done.
Yeah, so I think well originally same with GameStop was just that these stocks were like fundamentally overvalued. Like I feel like that was like the common thing of
Right.
just like movie theaters are closed, like of course like they don't have profit, it deserves to be this low. And that was always the thing that like I felt like I was hearing all the time is just fundamentally overvalued. And then that gets into the weird argument of like, well, what has value? We give it value. What are you willing to
Exactly.
buy AMC at right
Exactly.
now? If I want to buy it at 5 and someone else buys it at 6 and the next person buys it at 7, well, it's trading at 7. Like it's the stock market participants who give it value. It's not based on income or revenue or earnings per share or anything like that. It's like what is the market willing to pay? It's just the going rate, and it's literally nothing else than that. So with that, I was like, well, if you're saying it's fundamentally overvalued, I believe that's the argument between like the old school way of like Wall Street investing and like this new age thing, especially in this social battle of AMC of like, you know what?
We
Like,
were just talking about this,
yeah,
man. That's funny.
yeah, like it'll just go. It's like, well, no, like I think it's worth more because I think it's worth more. And that's the beauty of it. If you think it's worth more, great, you buy it, you hope it goes up. And like, there's no one stopping. And then, like, I mean, it was a comedy show with all these like interviews of people getting mad at like the retail like traders and stuff. They're like, well, why are they doing this? This is like, because we can.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
whether it's right or wrong, we have the like legal and like really moral right in the US to do what we want with our money. If I want to buy AMC at 20, 25, $50 a share, I can. No one like should be able to stop me from that. With
I think you're onto something, man. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'll let you finish up.
yeah, so I think with that fundamental, but more recently, we're actually seeing some analysts come out and be like, well, hang on. Like, there's actually like the most recent one I
They're
was reading
bullish on it now.
was
Yeah.
like 13 or 1350. Was like, so they're like, hang on. Like, and so now it's like the one thing that we were fighting against, there actually, some people agree that fundamentally it should be higher. So I feel like the last thing we're like legitimately fighting right now is more of hedge funds want it to go down because they want to make money. Like the way I guess we want it to go up. But like I feel like that's the bull bear argument. It's just like they're the final straw
Mm.
they have on the bear argument is like, no, we just like want it to go down because we've bet billions of dollars on it going down.
You mentioned this old school versus new school sort of investing, philosophy. And I think that's really interesting because the old school way of investing was you analyze previous quarter and annual, income statements, the fundamentals of the company, how strong they have performed, and you didn't really care so much about how they could perform, and that's, I think, where the really large divide is now, where there's this new school age of investing that's coming forward of, P to E ratios. I wouldn't say they're dead, but you've seen the transition, I'm sure, where companies, hypothetically speaking, are exponentially overvalued, like Tesla. But 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the line, Tesla could be producing the numbers that it's trading at right now. So people are investing in the idea of growth, the idea of innovation, the idea of, what could this be worth down the road? And I think that's where AMC comes into the equation, right? So obviously AMC, as it sits right now, a year ago, 6 months ago, wasn't generating any revenue, right? They were really cheap. That makes sense. They pulled back, and people are investing in it now, obviously for the squeeze. But if you were just looking at a fundamental perspective, right? A year down the road, I would imagine that AMC is going to produce some record numbers because of the amount of sentimental value, how the box office movies are coming out and how they're already performing, like Mortal Kombat, Demon Slayer, freaking Kong versus Godzilla have all smashed. Like they've been absolutely
Yeah.
outrageous. So like you're looking at the idea of what can the revenue and the growth be 6 months, 1 year, 5 years down the road, and you're looking at the new school performance. So like this idea that AMC is only worth $5, $10, like I just don't see it, because I think a year down the road, at the very least, they're 25. So it's like that old school versus new school, man. I feel like there's a lot of hedge funds out there that are old school, and they're like, nah, man, this ain't it. You bunch of silly chickens, you stupid money apes. You got to get out of this. It's only going down. Trust me. I've got a degree. I do this stuff for a living, but I'm not buying it. Not it, man.
Yeah. And it's just like every day that goes, I think that the fundamental argument, like even if we played the game they wanted us to play, I think it becomes weaker and weaker. So originally it's just
Oh
like
yeah.
theaters are shut down, and not only are they shut down, but the main argument is that they wouldn't be coming back. And with that,
You know,
especially with like streaming and stuff, and then Godzilla versus Kong completely changed it. Like they thought the HBO Max, like the streaming of movies simultaneously, they're like, who's gonna go again? And like, okay, that's a reasonable
concern. Yeah.
theory, but then the data is perfectly opposite. Like Godzilla versus Kong destroyed it. It's early numbers because the weekend isn't over yet for Mortal Kombat, but the early numbers are very, very strong. So like that argument is just now, it's like obviously it's not a fully accurate argument, like at a minimum, and most likely it's just not an accurate argument like at all, period.
Totally, man. I mean, this is something that I pulled from the Adam Ayer interview that I'll never forget. He said, 30, 40 years ago when the VCR first came out, they said that was going to put movie theaters out of business. And then it was DVD. And then it was Blu-ray. And now they're saying that it's going to be streaming services. And I bet you a decade down the road, it's going to be something else. And then another decade down the road, it's going to be something else. That's going to keep happening, but you can't replace the value of a movie theater. Like I had my first freaking kiss in a movie theater. I love going out there and spending $100 on popcorn, Milk Duds, and Diet Coke, man. Like it's an experience. You're going out there to freaking be with your people and enjoy the surround sound and sit back in that nice chair. I mean, unless you're streaming in a goddamn like a luxury kickback recliner, and you've got a 100-inch TV in your room with surround sound IMAX, like that costs a lot of money. I'd much rather pay my $10 for a movie ticket and just enjoy the night out, and I don't think that's ever going to be replaceable.
Yeah, I mean, I remember back in 2018, 2019, whenever it was, I had the AMC pass. So at that time, I still have Hulu, Netflix,
Oh
HBO.
yeah.
And at that, even with that, like with the HBO Max, I was still going to like a movie a week. On
Right.
top of that, you're buying popcorn, like whatever. Like, but my point is like, even with all those streaming options, I went out of my way, and like maybe I'm weird, but apparently like it's good enough that enough people are still buying it and like going to it, that there's just something about that experience. It's something else to do. And like, yeah, I mean, obviously I stream stuff, but like there's certain movies coming. I was just watching the trailer for Top Gun 2, the second one. Like
Yeah.
over my dead body will I be watching that on my TV. Like obviously I'm going to the movie theater. So
Yeah.
there's just like any new Marvel movie coming out, I'm not gonna watch that on like my TV for the first time. Are you kidding me? Like and I think there's a lot of people in that same sentiment that are just like, no, like it's still an experience that we enjoy. Like, and like you said, there's like also a strong nostalgic factor that like I just don't think it's replaceable.
Let's kind of circle back to that, the sentimental and nostalgic factor, right, of AMC theaters. How do you think the cult following and the community that is surrounded AMC is going to affect their business? Because I'm actually genuinely interested to see. Like, I can't wait for the end of 2021 to compare the revenue to 2019, 18, 17, 16. Like, I think it's going to be like a big difference, but I'd be interested to hear what you have to say because I've given my opinion on that before.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it would uptick. I mean, at that thing, I think it's more of a race against. Like, I mean, right now, I know like they're big states of what was it, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and California. They're none of them are 100%
They're
open.
not
So
all open,
yeah, so I
right?
think it's like more of a race about that. But if we fast forward to 2022, I could see that being like an incredibly strong year. Like if you gave us a 12-month period with 100% capacity, I think it'll probably be game changing relative to like 2019.
What do you think about this? Is my personal plan. I'd like to know what you're gonna do. But when AMC squeezes, I'm gonna sell on the way down. I'm gonna take my tendies. I'm gonna lock in some profits from some long-term call options. And then I'm gonna reinvest on the floor because I actually see a fundamental long-term value in
Mhm.
AMC for continuous growth down the road. Are you gonna invest in AMC long-term after you take your freaking tendies when AMC squeezes up to $1 million, $1 billion? What's your plan, man?
Yeah, I mean, I would just almost like I think in my own mind like a symbolic ownership of like this fight that we've all been
Yeah, right.
through. Like, and on top of that, I do like it. Like, I think like the same way I think there is a strong long term thesis even for GameStop. Like, if they properly pivot into e-commerce for esports sales, like I get it. Like, I like that, and so like. Yeah, but more than that, like even if I didn't think that there was medium to long term outlooks on either of those, I would own a portion of it just because like representative of the like for me, for you, and for so many people, this has like honestly been life changing. Like just like
Oh yeah,
the
totally.
community, like right now, the reason we're talking, we were brought together by this event. The amount of like people we engage with on a daily basis, like it's the community that got built, like the amount of people connected. Like I know you see it of like sometimes you and I are tagged where a parent says that like their kid is now learning about stock markets just
Yeah, I
because like
saw that. That was
yeah,
so
like
cool.
that type of
That was
stuff
crazy.
it's amazing, and like I want that. I want more people involved. Like I feel as you, I can only speak for the US, but like just financial literacy is not a thing, and like right now
No.
especially highlighted in the year 2020, people obviously fell on
Quarantine was a game changer.
yeah, like they fell on abnormally difficult economic time. And I think one of the best ways to do that is just to learn about like proper financial education, the terms, like what's going on. There's so many people that come in on a daily basis and they're like, "Hey, this is my first time willing to learn." And I just love that. It's like, "Great, let's teach you the right stuff. Let's get you to stay in here." And it's a good long-term thing just to know about cuz like that's one of the big differentiators from like of where people like where you start and where you end is like is your money invested basically.
Definitely, man. And I kind of I put out a video. It's funny that you talk about this. I think it was yesterday. It was called Why I'm Holding AMC. And it was like essentially talking about my story of how I got into the stock market, why like AMC matters to me sentimentally, fundamentally, like what it stands for in my mind. And I noticed like a bunch of people telling their stories about like the time that they freaking lost their house in 2008, or the fact that they're just trying to teach their kids how to be financially independent, or they're trying to create generational wealth. And like it's the exact same stuff that you're talking about, right, man? It's this big freaking community of people that have all come together for the same cause, and like the friends that I've made, the information that I've learned is all unreplaceable. And on top of
Mhm.
that, we're gonna make some stupid money,
Yeah.
and that's gonna, in my personal opinion, of course, just an opinion, but I think everybody's gonna be set in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of that is that point when we're all like just making, like you said, just dumb money. Like when this goes to the moon, the beauty of it is like for that to happen, it also then means the success of most likely taking down multiple hedge funds, making
Oh
Wall Street
yeah.
pay. I'm sure there'll be a
Let's
whole new
go.
like litany of SEC rules about like more of like hiding the loopholes for naked shorts. Like there's going to be like such actual change. Like I mean, I was just talking about this the other day of like when I look into the new SEC rules, and let me know what you think about this. Like it blows my mind that the market wasn't working that way. I'm like, why is this rule written
I
now? Like
know.
what were we doing
Man.
beforehand?
So there was a really, really good DD on Reddit, and I typically would only reference these if I feel they're really justified. But this thing was god tier, and it was called the House of Cards. and it was talking about how this decades and decades of malpractice has taken place and hasn't changed for literally years and years and years, and it's led to this. And it's like what I thought about that whole time is this essentially caused a large piece of the 2008 financial crisis. This attributed to some really bad, financial issues in the 90s, and they didn't change anything. Like,
Mhm.
what? Like, I don't understand. Like, you watched the entire economy collapse and just kept everything the same. You're like, yeah, well, it'll fix itself. Let's just keep kicking the can down the road, whatever. And like the action that they're taking, right? That's what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Absolutely awesome. Like, I'm so freaking pumped because maybe I just haven't paid that much attention. Maybe you can fill me in on this, but I don't remember seeing this many new filings coming out and all these new regulations and updates they're giving on trying to, lay some more foundations and rules for brokerage firms to follow, for the DTC to follow, for all these different entities to follow. Like, that should really change the way the stock market works. At least that's what we're crossing our fingers for.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is the first time, honestly, like I paid attention to new filings and that stuff, and I think that's actually representative of the issue because like no one really paid attention to it.
Exactly.
Like the
Right.
active the normal stock market participant never paid attention to it, and like that apparently just like allowed for the like egregious mishandling of how some of this stuff like goes. And I get it, like this is like super complex. Like I'm not saying everything's the easiest thing to figure out, but like just like the 90s, the tech bubble, 2008, 2009. It's just like what is going on here? So it's nice like I don't know. No matter how this ends, like I do feel like we've already made like positive impact for like the US stock market. And like I'm praying that we can make even more like in the next couple weeks, months, like whatever the time is.
Definitely, Matt. And I don't like putting a damper on things. I don't mean to bring up kind of a not fun topic, but I think you and me have pretty good intentions. I think we're out here to educate, to learn, and to bring people along when we're educating, and to have build a community of people who are interested about financial freedom. Right. Unfortunately, there are people out there on YouTube who maybe Twitter, maybe Instagram, maybe XYZ different influencers who don't have that same intent. And I think it's really important to only believe about half of what you hear. So if me and Matt say something, take it with a grain of salt, do your own research and follow up on it. Not because I think I'm wrong, but because you shouldn't make a financial decision based on what him or I say. And I bring this up because there are people out there who I'm almost certain have lost money because they're listening to the wrong people. So I do think there are malicious people out there who are taking advantage of this AMC movement, who are trying to profit off of the community. And I just advise you to be very careful of that. And I don't even like bringing this up. I wish that I didn't have to. Matt, you've probably seen it too. I just really want you guys to protect yourselves. So be very smart about who you listen to. Do your research, right? Back up what me and Matt say. Back up what anybody says, right? Because you never know when they're BSing you. So
Yeah.
sorry I had to bring that up. That's just
No,
something
no, no,
that's
no.
really been
I
pissing me
think
off. So
I think it's super, super important. Like, and it really is heartbreaking. I mean, like, folks listening, this is like a bit more personal for me, but like, I get the branding of this. Like, this community, Trey is obviously you're the enthusiasm, the energy, and I've taken on the brand of like the data, the research, and like together, I think that's why people enjoy the two of us. But like, even with that, if
yeah,
I'm like
man.
more of the data research, I mean, speaking to everyone out there, like it hurts me. Like I know Trey and I have talked about this like privately. Like we know people have lost like serious amounts of money because of other
Like
people.
millions of
So even with
dollars.
that, like we're not saying that we're perfect. We're saying actively check everyone because your money is on the line. Check me, check Trey. I mean, half the time I'm checking myself, folks. Like you got to do it because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
it is your own money, and serious things are going on. Like this isn't a walk in the
It's not
park really.
monopoly.
Like we are actively fighting like institutions that have been around for a long time, a lot of financial power, a lot of political power. This isn't easy. Like this isn't like oh it's just not a walk in the park. Do your own due diligence. Like that's kind of that.
That's what it is, man. I mean, honestly, money isn't happiness, but money is freedom. And if you put yourself in a situation because you're listening to the wrong people or XYZ or just, sometimes like I get it. Like I've made bad financial decisions before. I'm not blaming anybody for anything. But money is freedom, man. So don't put yourself in a situation if you don't have to, where you can't put food on the table, you can't sleep at night, and you can't take care of your family. That's the most important thing above all else. So trust but verify.
Yeah.
Trust but verify.
Trust but verify. I agree
Yeah,
with that.
spot on.
So actually, I think this is an interesting segue. So let's fast forward whatever amount of time we need to. We're living in that utopia after AMC and GME squeeze. At that point, it's fair to say that there's going to be a lot of people who have newfound money. Where do you think,
Yeah.
like, I mean, this to me is like the first half of the game is like, okay, this newfound money after the squeeze. What are you going to do with like that money? What are your suggestions to like your viewers of like how can they take that money and make good decisions with it?
So this is just what I'm gonna do. This isn't the
Okay.
only answer. This is my thesis, right? I am gonna take my cash, and first off, I'm gonna take care of my family and friends. So I want to give my mom a car. I want to pay her pretty well. I want to buy my uncle Mike a house. I want to pay his house off essentially. And I want to donate to my school. So give some money to the ROTC program out there so they can send a couple people to college for free. And I want to build a track out there because I used to run cross country and
Okay.
track, which would be really cool. And then from there, I'm going to reinvest my money. Oh, outside of my Tesla Roadster, I want a Tesla Roadster. That's my one thing that I want. So I'm going to buy a Tesla Roadster. But I'm going to reinvest that money. And I think the really important thing to know is that AMC and GameStop is not normal market trading behavior. Like, don't go looking for that 1 in a million again. It's because this is the thing, right? So if you were to make 100% gain on $1,000, you made $1,000, right? But if you make a 5% gain on $1 million, you made $50,000. So as you continue to accumulate liquidity and net worth, you don't have to be as aggressive with your investment strategy. So I think if you really want to be hands off in the market, you don't want to have to manage your portfolio at all, and you make a couple $1 million in liquidity, you can just very safely, I would say, put that into. I wouldn't do it all at once. I wouldn't buy all at once, but sporadically throughout months and months and years, invest that into an ETF, and you can just watch that get you your nice 5 to 10% growth per year, and you're sitting really freaking pretty. I mean, how can you complain about that?
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is continue to swing trade, but just really manage my risk. So I'll probably put half that money into some blue chip stocks, just set it aside, whatever. And then the other half of my money, just continue to do what I was doing and don't change the game. If it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. Get back to my swing trading, get back to some of the scalping opportunities that are not too risky, right? Don't play with too much money. Don't over leverage. The big thing is just protecting your capital, right? So this is like you could speak on this. I don't know. But like when people win the lottery, right? Why do most of them lose all the money that they made? It's because they don't know how to manage it, right? They assume that just because they ran into a bunch of money that they can increase their bills. But I live by the philosophy of I'm a millionaire on a $40,000 a year salary, right?
Gotcha.
So don't make bigger bills for yourself. Set up yourself for wealth. Set up your future families and generations for wealth, and you're never going to be. You're not going to complain about that. I don't know how you ever would. So that's my personal game plan. I don't know. How about you, man?
I mean, I think that's super, super grounded. Hey, I do have a clarification though. So after obviously your family, your donations, your Tesla Roadster, like, are there certain sectors that you're interested in, like whether it's
Mm,
like the cannabis sector or the EV sector? Like, are there ones that
right.
you think have like strong potential 2025, 2030, way past that? Like, just a sector that you're like, you know what, I'm gonna park some money in this. I'm feeling pretty good about it if it's there for a decade, 2 decades, something like that.
Yeah, definitely, man. I'm a big technology and innovation guy. So I like if I'm gonna invest in something long term, I want to be interested in it. Like I couldn't sit down every morning at 3 a.m. and research banks. Like that's just freaking boring. So that's not for me. And you can find any sector that interests you for that. But what gets me going is technology. I like clean energy, I like electric vehicles, and I like innovation. Those are like my four sectors that I really pay attention to for long-term growth. So like AGTC, Applied Genetics Technology Corporation, they're kind of like bionanogenomics, except for like retina and optic nerve disorders. So they
Okay.
essentially will reprogram the DNA sequence in your eyes and fix the genetic defect that causes different eye mutations and diseases, right? So like
Wow.
I think that's a spec play. It's a little speculative, but it could be a good grower down the road. I like X1. They're a 3D printing company. They 3D print sand and metal products. So like the applicability for that could be like the Department of Defense could print off, rounds for M16s. They could replace a pin in an M16. They could, make a freaking transmission for a Humvee. Like the uses for that are infinite. And I think that's a good company. Microvision, obviously, everybody knows I love my girl Mavis. That's my
Yeah.
thing. Automotive lidar play. I think that autonomous driving is going to continue to get better and better down the road as electric vehicles become more mainstream. I like Sensonics. They've got a continuous glucose monitoring system that I find to be superior to Dexcom. They've got a 10-day continuous glucose monitoring system, and Sensonics is working on a 180-day, which is like a night and day scenario between the two products. I think they're going to do well. Those are just probably a couple of my favorite plays that I'm looking at for some long-term growth. They are speculatives, which means there's risk involved. So I wouldn't over leverage any of those positions, right? Make sure your portfolio is diversified if you're going to play long-term. But I do think those are going to make you some good money.
Gotcha. So, now, like, in more of a shorter term thing, like this upcoming week, the final week of April. what are you going to be looking for in AMC right now? I'm sure like that's a big question. Hey,
Yeah.
the stock market's about to open. We're concluding April. What's your next watch? Like the main things you're looking for on AMC? Like let's say this upcoming week and the week after.
So I've got some moves that I'm going to make, and I'm going to preface by saying that there's risk involved in playing options. Don't put any money into options that you're not willing to lose, because if you are wrong and they expire worthless, you lose all your premium, right? But this week I'll be getting paid. I think my YouTube check. I haven't gotten paid yet, but when I get that, I'm going to be putting about $35,000 to $40,000 in AMC. Probably about 32 to 35 of that's going to go into stock. So I'm going to buy stocks, periodically throughout the week. And then the rest of that capital is going to go into June 18th, 14 and $15 strikes, because I think those are going to be, they've got enough time that you're not really fighting the theta too bad. So if things go south, you can cash out and make a little bit of money, or you don't lose too much value in your options. And if it goes right, you've got enough time. So if it goes over 14 or 15 bucks, you can print off some pretty nice tendies and reinvest it back into stock for when it eventually squeezes. So that's my game plan, because I think over the next 2 to 4 weeks, my prediction is just a prediction, it's an opinion, is that you're going to see the major move in AMC sometime mid-May to late May. That's my guess. I couldn't tell you for sure. I don't think we have the volume and momentum yet, but I think it's starting to build. And if I had to take a guess on where we are right now compared to the first time around, it's about 3 weeks out. Just based on the chart setup, the volume, the momentum, the hype, I think it's all starting to come back into the equation here. So that's my guess, man. Who knows though?
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's a pretty solid game plan. I don't know. I'm abnormally excited for this upcoming week just because
Yeah.
it can't consolidate forever. Like it's gonna
No,
have to
man.
make a move, and I think a lot of us are excited to see like what that move ends up being. Awesome. So for people like if I know a lot of you watching know who Trey is. Obviously not the most like you have kind of a hectic schedule with your day job and everything. So what's the best way people can like just stay up to date with you, message you? Like what's the best way to connect with Trey?
Yeah, definitely. So I post on Twitter pretty regularly. That's probably my best social media platform outside of YouTube. Usually just memes, sometimes like some information from AMC, some DD that I find interesting, or some drawings that I make up on Microsoft Whiteboard with my mouse. Just some stuff there. I post on Instagram pretty regularly. Maybe 3 or 4 times a week. And then YouTube, I will always put up at least one video a day. And my game plan as of now, I do work a 9 to 5 staff job right now for my government job. But with that being said, I plan on live streaming for at least an hour to 2 hours every single morning during the pre-market. So if you want to watch that, you can do it. And then I will always put out a nightly video covering AMC or some other stock.
All right, that sounds awesome. Well, from all the Space Apes, the Moon Gang community, I really, really appreciate you stopping by. It's been awesome, and I'm hoping, like on the backside of this, we could all just talk about like the experience of it exploding to even new like sky high levels. So I'm excited to have you come back for that one, man. But it's been real. Thank you so much.
Man, it's always a blast, dude. You're absolute homie, absolute ape. I love chatting with you all the time. And give me a phone call anytime you just want to shoot the shit.
All right, sounds good, man. Thank you so much.
Rock on. Peace out, brother.
Peace. Well, there you have it, Moon Gang. That is Trey from Trey Trades, aka the leader of the Gorilla Gang. He also is the proud owner of a pretty powerful Subway cup, from what I hear. So make sure to check that out. His YouTube channel can be found in the title of this video. It's also in the description, along with his Twitter. Those are the best ways to kind of follow Trey, stay up to him if you want to check out the channel, see all those videos. Like he said, he plans on doing more pre-market streams, and then he's attempting to post, he'll still have update videos every day for everyone out there. And then on top of that, he is pretty active on Twitter, so make sure you're checking those out there. He's definitely very, very deep into this world of AMC, an enthusiastic supporter of this movement. I'm obviously personally a pretty big fan. I think it's worthwhile to check out if this is one of the first times you're hearing about him. But thank you for hanging out with me on this interview, this live stream, this special weekend thing. I hope you enjoyed it. And we will see everyone, from me, Duck Shirt and Chair. We'll see you soon. Best of luck in the stock market.